Hey, what's up, guys? It's Jordan with the Laundromat Resource Podcast. This is show number 45. I'm pumped you're here because today is a very special episode. Today, we have the first ever repeat guest on the show, and I know you're going to love it. It's with Dave, the Laundromat Millionaire Men's. He was the first ever guest on the show. Also, the most downloaded podcast episode is with Dave. I mean, for good reason, he's the first repeat guest here. And you know what? We had an amazing, amazing conversation. I know that you're going to love this thing, and I cannot wait to jump into it. But before we do, real quick, I would just want to say this is a very time relevant announcement, but I know some of you guys have been trying to get on laundromatresource.com and maybe even trying to email me. I just want to let you know for the last few days, everything has been down or up and down, off and on, and I have not been able to send or receive emails. So if you've been trying to get a hold of me and you haven't heard anything back, that's why. We're working real hard on getting everything fixed. We experienced a huge surge in traffic due to some outside influences, which was awesome, but it just wreaked havoc on us. So anyways, those of you guys who were trying to get a hold of me or trying to get on laundromatresource.com or the forums and weren't able to, that's why. My apologies. Good problems to have, but so stressful, man. Anyways, all right. Enough of that. I don't even want to take up too much more of your time because I really want to get into it with Dave. He is just, I mean, if you haven't heard anything from Dave Menz yet, you're in for a treat. And if you have, then you know that you're in for a treat because he's got a lot of really awesome things to say. So let's jump into it with Dave, the Laundromat Millionaire Menz, right now. All right, guys, what is up? We're here with the first ever repeat guest that we've had on the show. And it's fitting in like a lot of ways, to be honest, because for number one, you were my first guest.
I was.
And yeah, guess on.
I didn't even know that at the time.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't let you know that. Otherwise you might not have come on. I appreciate you did.
I thought you were already legit. I didn't know. I was helping drive that train.
I'm still working on the legit part. But it's also very fitting because you've done a ton of things since we first talked in that podcast episode. And so, you know, we'll get into all that in a little bit, but if you don't know who this is Dave, the Laundromat Millionaire Menz, who is just a super good friend of mine. We were friends because of that first episode. And if you haven't listened to it yet, it is the most downloaded episode of the podcast. So I'll link to it down below, but laundromatresource.com/show2. And you got to listen to it if you haven't yet. Everybody loves that episode. And you know, you're going to love this one probably even more. So, but Dave, thanks for coming on the show again, man. How are you doing?
Man, I couldn't be any better. I could not be any better. I couldn't be any more excited to be here. When I was on your show number 2, I was super nervous and
that did not come through at all.
I guess we're always a little bit nervous when we know in the back of our minds people are watching and listening. But I think a better emotion would be just pumped. Like I am pumped to be here because I just want to thank you because you were just a guy that jumped on a forum and said, "Hey, I'm doing this podcast thing. Anybody want to do it?" And I was like, "I'll do it." And I can't remember if I was on the Bigger Pockets one first or not.
No, you were on mine first.
Or was
mine
I? Okay.
First.
So I was on yours.
You remember that?
Yeah. And then I did them both like really close together.
Yeah.
And neither one of them were intentional at all. It was just like, okay, if you want me to, I'll tell my story. And it's been overwhelming to me, the number of people that have reached out to me and that I've got to meet that are in the industry and not in the industry, that have just sent me some of the most unbelievable messages that I and my story have inspired them. And I've always, I guess, had it in my heart to be that kind of a person, or always tried to be that kind of a person. But I guess I never really saw myself as that person. And then when those two things kind of happened, I think within a few weeks of each other, if I remember right, your exposure and the exposure of the Bigger Pockets community, it just, I guess I want to say in a really strange way, it kind of gave me permission to just do some of the things that I had thought about doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So anyway, my point is I want to thank you for that, because like you and being on your show has absolutely helped me to find the next level of what Dave Menz is and who I want to be moving forward. I mean, you and I talk about this all the time. I mean, I'm 44 years old. I feel like I'm just getting started. Mm-hmm. Like God has plans for me, and I want to see those through, and I want to serve other people, and I want to inspire other people. And I never saw myself as an inspirational person, but I've always learned too that if people keep telling you you're inspiring, then you are.
Yeah.
And I just never like saw myself as that kind of a person. But at the end of the day, it's very humbling, but it's also very exciting because it opens up all these new opportunities. And I know you've experienced a lot of that yourself with your notoriety and things that have come. And so ultimately, I just want to say thank you, because it's absolutely helped me to be a better version of myself, which is what I'm always trying to do every day.
Wow, man, huge compliment. So I really, really appreciate that. And that goes both ways. You know, I feel like, I don't know, you know, when you start something brand new, you don't know how it's going to be received. You don't know how people are going to think about it. And having you on the podcast was just, and just a response from that I got from people. It was the little bit of confidence boost that I needed to keep doing it, right? Because it takes a lot of effort and a lot of time to put together a podcast. And, you know, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. Anyways, I just want to say thank you for being willing to, you know, knowingly or unknowingly to come on a fledgling little podcast and share your story. And we're not going to get too much into your early days story because we did that in show 2. So if you haven't listened to that yet, it might be worth just pausing where we're at right now and go back and listen to the first episode with Dave. It will blow your mind and you will be inspired by that. I guarantee it. And then come back to this one, because I want to hear a little bit about what's life been like. It's been, I don't know, it's been 10 months, 9 or 10 months or something. Tell me a little bit about what life's been like over the last 9 or 10 months for your businesses.
Well, one of the big changes was just people started to see me as someone that they were willing to listen to, I guess. I think being on podcasts and just for whatever reason, people put you on a screen, it all of a sudden gives you credibility, and, like psychological. And I don't really understand that, but I have to admit that it is real even with me. I mean, if you ran into someone at the store and you were like, I just saw you on a YouTube video. Like, even if the video only had 10 people on it, you would think you saw someone. And it doesn't make me important or special. I'm still the same guy. But for whatever reason, it gives me some credibility. And that was kind of a spurring for me and the confidence that I discussed to be willing to step out of my comfort zone and see myself as more of a leader, more of an inspirational person, and gave me the encouragement to tell my story. And so I guess you would call it kind of a confidence builder in the same way that you did by having a podcast to start to begin with. Mm-hmm. So from that, I had a kind of a funny story, as everybody knows that I do, you know, consulting for our industry. And I had been doing consulting for 2 or 3 years before that, but I had done it for free. I had never charged. I didn't have an entity. I didn't have a contract. I didn't have anything. I just saw myself as like, if somebody, I've always tried to be a big networker and pretty active on the message boards and, you know, even in person at Clean Show and Excellence and stuff like that. I've always just enjoyed meeting people and getting to know people. And so a lot of people know who I am because we've met. But I just found myself in this situation where all of a sudden I had been doing all this this free consulting. And all of a sudden, like, man, you know, free consulting is a booming business. And so, you know, when I all of a sudden started to get a little bit of credibility from being on that screen, it just was completely overwhelming. And it was flattering because I wanted to help people, but it was also overwhelming because I'm still just a guy. Like, I'm just a guy that lives in Cincinnati with some laundromats. And so I all of a sudden had to make this conscious decision of, what am I going to do with this? Am I going to embrace this and become this? I didn't even know what it would be. Am I going to embrace this or am I going to run from this? Is really the decision I had to make. And I've never really run from anything in my life. That sometimes gets me in trouble. But I've just never run from anything in life. And especially when I see an opportunity to do what I perceive as good things. When I have an opportunity to make a difference, even if it's, I say it all the time, even if it's just in one person's life, then that's like, I just can't help but feel that God put me there for a reason. And maybe in the grand scheme of the whole world and creation and everything, it's a very minuscule thing. But if that's what he wants me to do, then that's what I want to do. I don't want to run from it, even if it's outside my comfort zone. So that's really what I, kind of spurred it and started the consulting. And then from there, I became a little bit more comfortable in the fact that, okay, maybe I know a little something that can help people. I always felt like I knew my stuff about our industry, but to have a confidence level where you're like, yeah, I feel comfortable like charging people for my expertise. I felt comfortable giving them my opinions because it was free. I was well, I'm not charging anything. I mean, if you want Dave's opinion, I'll give you my opinion. But it kind of took me as a industry veteran, which I never really saw myself as, and kind of gave me that permission to take it and kind of run with it and help others. And so I did that. I started a paid consulting service. And I've been doing a lot of that, and I've really enjoyed it. And then I started thinking to myself, wow, I'm really getting maxed out on time, because I'm sure the one-on-one consulting, I mean, it takes up a lot of your time because you can only help one person at a time. Going back to that big picture heart that I have, I guess, that wants to help as many people as I can and impact the world in whatever way I'm able. It caused me to kind of, sort of rewire my thinking in a way where I was like, okay, well, if I can help 5 or 10 people a day by being on the phone with them for an hour or two, how many people can I help if I start producing content? And so that was kind of what got me into this thought process of, it's no secret that I have a YouTube channel, under my Laundromat Millionaire brand. And if you haven't subscribed, go check it out. I'd love to have you subscribe and watch the videos. But
it's worth it, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I really only did that as a way of, I had this mentality. I was like, well, if I spend a few hours on the phone with people, yeah, they pay me some money. Hopefully I help them. And it's a win-win for both of us. But what if I spend, making these videos isn't always super quick. So let's say I spend 6 or 8 hours making a video and I put it out there and, 200 people watch it. Then maybe I've helped 200 people in some little tiny way. Maybe they pull little nuggets out of those videos. But the beauty is they sit there forever. They're evergreen. And so they can help people for years and years. And I've always been pretty big on YouTube. And so I've always kind of thought to myself, man, I watched YouTube videos that I watched the video. I'm like, wow, that was great. And then I look and it was published 4 years ago. And I'm like, so it just kind of triggered this different thought process in my mind of having the ability to help people serve our industry and serve the world in a different way. And so that was really what kind of drove me into the one-on-one consulting. And that's what caused me to create a YouTube channel when I had no clue what I was doing. Still really don't have any clue what I'm doing, but I know a little bit more than nothing at this point. And so I want to continue to grow that. I want to continue to help people. And I get messages from people constantly, that they've watched my videos or a video on a certain subject or whatever, and that inspired them. And that means a lot to me. I said from the very beginning, I was creating a YouTube channel to help people, not to monetize it. And if it ever brings me money, then I'm not going to turn it away, of course. But at the same time, that's not my focus. And so that's just really kind of spurred my thoughts and my ambitions to, well, I didn't know how to do that. And I kind of have figured it out, or am figuring it out. And my wife, who's a fantastic, wife and partner in life, has kind of started to embrace this new version of Dave Menz. It makes her very uncomfortable because she's not a public person. It makes her very uncomfortable. I've had some people come up to me at church and say, "Hey, the Laundromat Millionaire." And she is not okay with that at all. But, I guess they saw my video somehow. I'm not sure how, but so anyway, that's what I've been doing.
Awesome, man.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, you've been doing a ton, and I know you got some more coming up, and we'll talk about that kind of a little bit in a few minutes. But let's talk about let's help some people. I mean, you're about helping people. Absolutely. I'm about helping people. Let's help some people. So let's talk about the last year in terms of laundromats. It's been a crazy, unprecedented year for everybody, and especially business owners. Let's talk about the impact of COVID over the last year, and what I'm really interested in hearing from you, and maybe just kind of talking out together. What are the big lessons that we're taking out from this? Because, this is my thing, right? So I got in the industry, made all these mistakes, and it ended up costing me a lot of money. And I kind of came to this crossroads, right? Like, do I, cut my losses and run, or do I take these lessons, expensive lessons that I've learned, and try to put them to use to move forward? Right. And so I feel like we're coming up at that crossroad here for a lot of us too, as laundromat owners, where hopefully we're kind of on the upswing, from all this COVID stuff. But I think it would behoove us to take a second to pause and think back and think, what are the big takeaways? What are the big lessons, the big expensive lessons that we learned either personally or as an industry over this last year, that we can take kind of moving forward? So I don't know. I'm curious what you have to say about that. I'd love to kind of chat about that a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely want to hear your opinions, of course, too. But it's no secret that we both talk to a lot of people in the industry. So one of the cool things about that is we get our perspective as we've experienced it, but we get to hear their perspective. And I have a lot of people that are friends, not consulting clients, but just friends in the industry that have called me and emailed me and texted me, and they want to know what I'm experiencing because, at different points in this COVID crisis. Because, they're freaking out and they want to know if I'm freaking out. It's like, what, I have a support group or something.
Misery loves company, right?
Yeah. Well, and luckily I've been in some situations where I could talk some people down and calm them down. And I'm sure some of them did that to me, for sure. But a couple quick lessons that I'll throw out there are just insanely obvious. But it's no secret that I started in this industry with next to nothing. I mean, even outside of the industry, I saved for 5 years and lived below my means to just save up $25,000, which wasn't easy to do for me and my family, just to get into the business. Mm-hmm. And then we got into the business and we grinded and we pushed with everything we had for, I'd say, a solid 7, maybe 8 years, taking very little money out of the business, keeping my full-time job, working all the hours, putting in tons of sweat equity. And I'm telling you that at any point in that 7 or 8 year journey, if COVID had happened, I would have been bankrupt within hours. Like, I was pushing the envelope that much financially. Every penny I made, I didn't pile up 50 grand and then say, I'm going to spend 30 on the stores. I got the penny today and I spent the penny tomorrow to make my business better. And I don't regret doing it because it got me to where I am. And it's the only way I would have gotten to where I am. But one of the lessons in there is, well, it's no secret I'm a push the envelope kind of guy. You have to have that capital reserve, even if it's a small amount. And nobody can prepare for COVID as a business owner. It's almost impossible to prepare for fully. But we can take an example of something as catastrophic as this and then break it down into micro lessons and say, okay, what's a micro lesson or two that I can learn from this scenario that, the chance that COVID, let's say we all get our vaccines and blah, 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 it goes away and we go back to normal, which I know everybody doesn't like to use the word normal anymore, but we do all that stuff. And in a year, it's like COVID never existed. We're all back to our normal lives. Let's hypothetically say that happened. Okay. What are the odds that in my lifetime, I'm 44, let's say I live to be 100, and in those 60 years, 55 years, what chances we're going to experience that in that enormity again? Probably pretty slim. So a lot of people would take the lessons, the macro lessons from an experience like a pandemic and say, wow, that was crazy. I'm glad I'm through it. And then completely ignore all the lessons. But how I tend to look at it is, okay, the likelihood of that happening again is slim, but I've experienced a lot of tragedy in my life, like probably an abnormal amount. And one of the things that has kind of rewired my brain is, how the old saying, like, teenagers think they're invincible and they think it'll never happen to them.
Right.
My brain has been rewired that it will happen to me. Mm-hmm. And so COVID and the lessons associated with that, for me, are we can no longer say that something like that can't happen, because it has happened. And we can look back into history and see other situations that are, similarly enormous, maybe not the same. But ultimately, what I'm rambling about is that preparation. We as business owners, we have to be prepared. And you can't have millions in the bank if you are just getting started, but we have to be prepared as we can. So one of the micro lessons I would take away from that is I'm always encouraging people to push the envelope and drive harder. And yeah, when it comes to time and networking, there are certain things that there's really no reason to not push the envelope. But when it comes to having actual cash on hand and never depleting that to the point of where you put yourself in a dangerous situation, it's a micro lesson, but it's also a macro lesson that I think we should take seriously, that I take seriously. And I'm very blessed because, here we are when COVID happened, I was kind of at year 10 of my journey, and I had experienced enormous success from like year 7 to year 10. And so I did have pretty substantial cash reserves available for me. And so COVID, while it wasn't fun, I was pretty well prepared for it compared to a lot of people in the industry. But I know tons of people in other industries and in our industry that lost everything. Mm-hmm. And that's very real. This is very real stuff. So, when we talk about business ownership and the risks that come with that's an enormous risk that we take every day. And just to throw a quick number out there, when this COVID stuff happened and they shut down the whole world overnight, I have 4 laundromats that are very profitable and some rental properties. My revenue across all 4 of my stores dropped 40% overnight. And you talk about a punch in the gut. And I know people are watching this that are in our industry and out of our industry that are going, yeah, who knows? Mm-hmm. I mean, you talk about a scary situation, but the beauty of it for me and my family is we said, well, aren't we blessed and aren't we thankful to have all these reserves? Because I just couldn't help but think, and I don't know that I'll ever stop thinking, if that had happened in year 7 instead of year 10, I wouldn't be the laundromat millionaire. I would be living in a cardboard box or something. Like I'd be starting over. Mm-hmm. And that's humbling. Like that's a pretty humbling thing to understand that. So I'm not sure if that's what you were going for, but yeah, well, that's a big picture lesson of what I've gotten out of this for sure.
Yeah, that's a huge one. I mean, my question for you then to follow up is, what about the person who's getting started now who maybe doesn't have a lot? They're trying to eke their way into their first laundromat. They don't have a lot of capital, and they are going to be living on the edge. They're not going to have reserves for a little while. What would you say to someone like that? Would you still encourage them to push the envelope, or would you say, hey, wait off, hold off for a little bit? What would you say?
Well, I'm a firm believer that we don't decide when opportunities come. We just decide how we respond to them. So if you ever have an opportunity come about and you're not prepared for it, maybe not fully prepared, but you're not prepared for it properly from, I guess you'd say maybe a minimum standard, then it's okay to let it go because there will be other opportunities. But take that and internalize that and let that drive you and your ambitions and your desires and say, but I'm going to do everything I can for the next day, week, month, year, whatever, to be fully prepared for the next opportunity. But when it comes to that balance proposition, what I would tell people is if I had it to do over again, knowing what I know today, it wouldn't have kept me from getting into the industry, but it would have kept me from pushing the envelope as hard and as fast as I did for those first 7 years. And would I be at year 8 or 9 right now instead of year 11? Probably so, but I'd be in a much healthier place. So, you and I talk about things like leverage all the time and how powerful they are, but there are such things as being over leveraged. And I was willing to be over leveraged. I was willing to take that risk. Part of it was I had a really good full-time job and I could work pretty much any amount of overtime I wanted. So if I needed extra money, I could always go and get it. And so I wasn't too worried about it. I just wanted to pay my bills and grow my businesses. But really what I tell people is probably when it comes to the cash reserves things, I wouldn't burn the midnight oil quite like I did. It's okay to have a balance. And everything can and should be relative in life. So if I look back at like year 4 or 5 when I was really pushing things, Yeah, I mean, I think I would look back and tell that Dave Menz at year 4 or 5 or even 3 or 2 and say, hey, you can still do 95% of what you want to do. Just pull. Nobody's asking you to stop anything. Don't ever stop. Just pull the reins back a little bit. Take a 10% pause. Build up a little cash reserves. Because if you have a small business like I did, and it wasn't a substantial business, and I didn't need to generate any revenue from it, I just needed to break even and pay the bills and grow the business. Then a small cash reserve can go a long ways. But when you're trying to live off of it, you're trying to provide your family and insurance and car payments and all the things that throw our way, then your cash reserves have to be a lot more substantial, especially when you take a substantial business that you're used to generating all this revenue, and now you're bleeding revenue. I mean, you're going from one side of the ledger to the other overnight, literally. So I think that's what I would tell people is if you're in that situation, and most people are when they first enter, the business, I would just find a little bit more delicate balance of maybe an 80-20 or 90-10, where I was just like 100%. Mm-hmm. I think that's what I would tell them, because I'm always an ambitious person. I'm comfortable with risk. I'm not afraid of failure. I know those tend to be, bad words and have negative connotations, but I'm not afraid of those things. I wasn't before COVID, and I'm not afraid of them now. But that doesn't mean that we can't be a little bit wiser and just maybe balance things out a little bit more than, I've said in many of my interviews and podcasts and stuff, I do everything 150 miles an hour. Well, I mean, I don't regret that in a lot of ways because it got me to where I am, but maybe I should push pause and learn some lessons from this and say, hey, maybe 90 miles an hour is okay.
Right. Yeah. Right.
So what about you? What are your thoughts on that? Because I really want to hear from your perspective.
Yeah. Well, I have another question for you that I want to follow up, but I can give you something. Well, let me ask this question and then I'll go back and I'll tell you my lesson, because I'm really curious about this. On the flip side, what did you see the laundromats that are doing well today? Now we're in this day 1 of March, right? Like we're here in 2021, almost a year into COVID. The laundromats that are doing well today, what did they do differently than the laundromats that are struggling today over the last year?
That's an absolute gold question for sure. And the reason that I say that is what I've always believed is I want to push and be better and better. So if you take the conversation we just had out of the equation as far as cash reserves, and you just say, am I always pushing the envelope to be better tomorrow than I was today? What I've seen, and I would suspect what you've seen, because I've seen it all over the country, is the top operators in the industry are the ones that weathered this the best. They were the ones that if people had to go to a laundromat, they weren't going to go to the bottom 50 or even 75% of the industry. Mm-hmm. They were willing. We're seeing in Cincinnati, and I've heard all over the country, that people, that are using laundromats, they're going to the ones that are cleanest. And people have always done that to a certain extent, but I think it's magnified. I think the whole cleanliness, the modernization, all the things associated with the top of the industry, the high levels of customer service, the being attended versus unattended, even the security aspects of it. I mean, when you're in a desperate times like COVID, and even coming out of something like COVID, there's a lot of desperate people out there. Safety in any business is more magnified. And so what I've seen is those people have better weathered the storm, if that makes sense, because they didn't lose as much revenue. I mean, I know people that dropped, when I said I've dropped 40%. We dropped 40% of our revenue almost overnight, but within a matter of 4 to 6 weeks, we were down 15%. So, I mean, when you shut the whole world down, people can't leave their houses. So that's one thing. Right. But as soon as they let up even a little bit and said, okay, you can go use an essential service, an essential business like a laundromat, you can do those things. I mean, we had all kinds of new customers, and we didn't get all of our customers back because a lot of them were still scared to leave their house. But we did make up for a lot of that with new customers that were going to our competitors. And I don't want to jump ahead, but I'm building a new store right now. And the store that I'm building, we're buying the real estate, and it's one of my competitors. And COVID did them in. Now, would they have gone out of business eventually anyways? I can't answer that question, but that brings in January permanently. And it's going to be a fantastic opportunity for me to continue to serve the community and elevate the industry, because I'm super excited because I get to take all the knowledge and experience I have over 11 and a half years now and put it all into this store from day one. So I don't have to,
I love that.
I don't have to, yeah, it's a pretty cool experience. So anyway, different conversation, but that's been my observation, is that the top of the industry has, they may not feel they've thrived, but they've thrived through this compared to
relatively
speaking.
Well, I'm not trying to dodge the question, but I have a follow-up to that follow-up.
Okay.
And I think this would be huge, right? Okay. There's a lot of us that are listening to you talk right now who are thinking, well, that's awesome for the top operators, right? Mm-hmm. How do you get to be a top operator? What does it take for the average laundromat owner who maybe looks at themselves and doesn't consider themselves a top operator? How does that average or even below average laundromat owner become a top operator?
Yeah, so you just blew away your best question prior, because that's your best question so far. Good job. You're a great interviewer. You're pretty good at this. You should get test. No, so what I believe, I take some heat and some hate for referring to myself as one of the top operators in the industry. People don't like that because it sounds very cocky and bragging. But here's what I would tell people, and this is just my own personal perception of me and other people. The top operators in the industry don't necessarily have the most resources in the best stores. And that may shock a lot of people. You got the Taj Mahal laundromats, that's fine at all. Well, you're talking about facilities. I'm talking about operations. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about the heart of the owner. I'm talking about the character of the people that you hire and who works there and how they serve their community. And those things don't happen overnight either. But one thing that can change overnight is if you are an operator, an owner of a laundromat, and you maybe haven't been on your A game, and I'm talking about you individually as the owner of the business, doing the best that you can do with what you have and the resources available and the facilities available to you. Maybe you haven't done that. You can literally get up tomorrow morning, and you don't even have to wait till tomorrow morning, but you can get up in the morning and you can say, you know what, I'm flipping a switch. I'm doing things differently. And you can be one of the top operators in the industry overnight. Because in my opinion, just the way I verbalize this and the way I visualize this is being a top operator in the industry is a mentality. It's a mentality. So you can choose to do that. There's no excuses. If you're using excuses and reasoning for not being a top operator, then they are just that. They're excuses. They're holding you back. So I really believe it's a mental thing. But I also firmly believe that the reason I am where I am today, from where I started and the limited resources I have, is because I've gotten up every day for 11 and a half, 12 years and just obsessed over being better today than I was yesterday. I didn't compare myself to other people. I still don't compare myself to other people. Other people do, and that's why I get haters. People walk in my store. My stores aren't the Taj Mahal of laundromats. Some people think that because I'm on a computer screen and I say I'm a great operator. But I mean, none of my stores are $3 million laundromats like you see out there in the world. That's not what I do. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'll put my team and my operations against anyone in the country. And the beauty of that is, even if I lose, not that it's a competition, but even if I lose, the fact is I won because I just got better. Because you challenged me, you drove me to find something else in me that's going to take me and my business and my community and my family to a different level. And so I didn't lose, I won. You just happen to have won too. And that's really what I'm all about when it comes to, my YouTube channel and the different things that I try to do with consulting is just getting across to people that, I was where you are. If you're a quote unquote bottom operator of the industry, if you're running a store that's nothing special, I was there once. So I didn't just go to sleep one night, get up in the morning and inherit a bunch of money. That's not what happened. Every day I grinded and I pushed and I hired people that were grinders and I hired people that I thought were grinders. And if I found out they weren't, I fired them. I got them off my team. I didn't let them be a cancer. And I brought in another person that I thought was a rock star. And if you do that for a couple of years, you'd be surprised the momentum that you will gain. But it has to all start with you at the top, because, you know, they say in any business, big or small, it all starts with the leadership at the top and the culture. And so that all starts with you, but you have absolute control over that. No one can control that except for you. No one can make you want these things. Nobody can make you be obsessive over these things, and nobody can take them away from you. Nobody can show up at my house today. I mean, they can kill me dead on the sidewalk, but they still can't take away my drive. I'm just dead. Oh, that's a terrible analogy. You edit that out. But anyway.
No, but I like it, man. You're gonna keep going.
You're getting me worked up, man. You're getting me worked up.
And I love that, because here's what I'm hearing a lot of, right? I'm hearing a lot, and it is better than it was, but I'm hearing a lot of owners who are deflated, right? They feel like this sucked a lot of energy and a lot of life out of them, and they've fought really hard just to stay open, and they're fatigued. I think, you know, just emotionally, mentally, physically, even fatigued from just trying to make it, trying to survive. Right. And I love what you're saying about you can make a decision, you can change your mentality and become a top operator. Right. And I just think a lot of people need to hear that right now, because as discouraging as it has been for a lot of people, and as difficult as it's been for a lot of people, again, you can still make yourself better today than you were yesterday. And you can do it again tomorrow and be better tomorrow, you know, and that doesn't necessarily translate to an immediate revenue boost for your business, but it will translate to a revenue boost over the long term if you keep on that trajectory, right? So I think some people just need to get fired up right now and get back into their business. You know, I know that there are things that I can do for sure for my businesses to, you know, improve them right now. I could probably tomorrow immediately make my businesses better than they are today by doing a few things, right? And that starts that momentum train of continuing to improve, and not just to improve for your business's sake, but to improve for your customers. Right. And I think going back to the question I'll answer now, I think that, you know, one of the big lessons I learned and that I've been seeing over this whole debacle is the people who have done well are the people who are putting value first. Right. The people who are trying to figure out ways to bring more to their customers during a time where everybody just needs a little bit more, right? They need a little bit more care. They need a little bit more attention, whether that's to cleanliness or just to, hey, how have you been? We've all been holed up in our houses, not so much as much anymore, but like, you know, we've been isolated. Are you doing okay? Like checking in on, you know, customers, training employees to do that thing, but also paying special attention to, you know, the cleanliness and to your processes and to, you know, adding services that will help people, you know, whether it's a drop-off service or even thinking of ways to make that more convenient and to make that safer. Just all these little details that you can do and little tweaks that all kind of add up to add more and more value to your customers. Those are the people I see thriving, and the people that I see who are in the business, you know, who got sold like I did early on, the bill of goods, like, hey, collect coins and you're good to go. Like that's your business.
Well, if I may jump in, Jordan.
Jump in, man.
That's a fantastic point, and I appreciate you bringing that up. And I want to be, I want to be the voice of reason here for all you guys. So I'm going to talk to everybody for a second, not just in the industry, but anyone listening to this. I don't care if you're outside of the industry or whatever. Folks, there's never been a better time in the history of, you could say the world, but the United States for sure, than to operate a business at the top of your industry. I did a video recently on value versus price. And I don't know how many of you watched it or didn't watch it, but if you didn't, go to my YouTube channel and watch it.
I'll link it.
Thank you. Not because I care about the view, but because it will help you understand what I'm talking about. I understand we're all beaten down. I was a part of that too. I'm no different than anyone else. Quite frankly, early 2020 was one of the tougher times in my life, and I've had some adversity. But the reality is, we're now seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and we don't know how far out that tunnel is. Some people say months. Okay, fine. All I know is we're not in March and April. And one of the things I've learned in my life, because I've experienced an insane amount of adversity and I've overcome it all. I mean, I didn't always handle it the best, but I overcame it and I stayed alive, is that it always makes you stronger. And I know it's cliche, and it is cliche, but it's also true. It's 100% true. So if you are a little punch drunk right now and you're like, and maybe you put on that COVID-20 and all the things that are very real and have happened in life, just understand that you are in an ideal position right now to operate at the top of your industry and to change the world. And the reason that I say that is the world has never appreciated value more than it does right now as we sit here today. And that they may appreciate it more tomorrow than they did yesterday. And I don't know how long the psychology of what's happened to us as a society and a world, I don't know how long it'll impact us. But if we look at things like the Great Depression and we study history a little bit, what we realize is these things last for the rest of the generations' lives that were impacted by those. So my grandma, and I don't know if you want me to talk about my grandma on the podcast. My grandma, who's 86 years old, she told me in the middle of COVID, she said, I've never seen anything like this in my life. And she was a Great Depression baby. She washes baggies to this day. She washes, aluminum foil, from where she does, puts up leftovers or whatever. Mm-hmm. She'll eat the leftover, lay it out flat, wash it with dish soap and water, dry it, and fold it up and put it in her pantry and reuse it again. The impact, she was like, I think 5 or 6 at the beginning of the Great Depression. I'd have to do the math, but she was super little. The impact of those things on her generation and her parents' generation are still playing out 80 years later. So if we think that our society isn't perfectly positioned to value people operating businesses at the top of the industry operationally more than ever, they are. That's what's happening right now. That's the psychology of what's happening. So if you don't want to operate a business like that, then I got bad news for you, because the future doesn't look bright for you. If you want to continue to operate at the bottom of the industry and you want to do the things that people operating at the bottom of any industry do, ignoring customer service, not caring about people, not trying to make your business better, I got bad news for you. The future does not look bright for you. But what has happened in the last year and what's going to continue to happen over the next several years is the weeding out of the bottom of society, business-wise is what I'm referring to. That's happening. And for people that are interested in doing something different than maybe the bottom half of any industry, the future has never been brighter. So if you don't feel very optimistic and you feel kind of beaten down right now, I don't know if that registers with you, but I hope it does, because this isn't Dave Menz pumping you up. This is the truth of what's happening in our country and what has happened over the last year. And quite frankly, I feel like it's just getting started. Like there's the psychology associated with the vaccines, and you can argue all this stuff all you want, but there's the psychology is very real of vaccines coming out and numbers going down and, an election being over. Regardless of how you feel about those things, the reality of what's happening and the timelines associated with them means good times ahead for our businesses if we operate at the top of the industry, if we focus on people and community, and we focus on value. And one of the things my mentor taught me literally before I got into this business is if you do all of those things, the money will always follow. He told me a long time ago, he said, Dave, money's just a scorekeeper. And maybe I need a t-shirt. Money just a scorekeeper. It sounds like but it was his line, and he may have stole it from somebody else. So I don't know if that helps anybody at all, but that's what actually makes me, like, I had a rough year. I'm not going to pretend like I didn't. And like I said, I experienced some depression. I'm just going to be totally transparent here. I experienced some depression. I had some health issues that I've been able to overcome. And I've never been more optimistic for the future of our industry. And then we can talk about the whole how this is positively impacting how laundromats are perceived as essential businesses. That's a whole different animal. But I apologize for interrupting you, but that's something that really sits on my heart. And people that are listening to this, I don't care what industry you're in, you need to understand that there's nothing to be down about, that what happened was very real, but let's get ourselves up psychologically and let's be like, you know what? We can sit here and cry over this for the next 3 years, but you're going to miss out on the best opportunity of a lifetime, probably.
Yeah, that is, God, man, like however much you paid to listen to this podcast, this is worth way more than that. So, I mean,
wait, people pay for this?
No, I'm just kidding. But they should, to get information like that. Holy cow, man. No, but seriously, like that is incredible. And I just want to say to anybody out there who is feeling beat up, or maybe you did have to shutter your laundromat or business right now. You know, one of the things, number one, I would say, hey, you know, rewind that and just listen to what Dave's talking about right now. Cause that is just huge. And it's that mentality that really is going to take you to the next level. It's taken Dave to the next level. It's continuing to do that, you know, both in his laundromat business and also just in his influence that he's having in this industry, which, you know, we'll get into a little bit more of that in a minute here, but that's huge. But I want to also just say, like, hey, if you've experienced failure either this last year or before, you know, in this business or in other businesses or whatever the case may be, number one, just know that you're not alone, right? Business is hard, and it doesn't matter if it's a simple business. I remember sitting and reading, you know, the Planet Laundry magazine, reading the stats out of that thing that was like 98% or whatever the stat was, something crazy like that, of all laundromats succeed, right? And I remember sitting in my laundromat, looking around at my empty laundromat where nobody was coming and just thinking, man, how am I not able to figure this business out? If 97% or whatever it is of people can figure this business out, why can't I? Right. And I just want to encourage you, like, if you have experienced failure, I know I have, I'm sure you have in various ways too. You know, I just want to encourage you, don't give up, you know, don't give up, because it kind of going back to, you know, where I was in my mind at that point. I was like, I can either take these lessons that I've learned and push forward and help them propel me to the next level, or I can give up and go back to the way things were or whatever. And I just want to encourage you, failure is part of the process. There's no shame in failing. There's no shame in not succeeding in something that you put your all into. And if you didn't put your all into it, then that's something else to examine, right? And I just want to say that right now, because I know some people that I've talked to have experienced failure over the last year in their businesses. I know most of us have experienced failure in different ways, but I just want to encourage you, take a step back and look at failure as a step in the journey and a lesson to be learned, and a way to help propel you to the next level in a way that you couldn't do if you didn't fail. Right? You can't learn. I tell coaching clients this all the time. You can listen to all the podcasts. You can watch all my videos. You can watch all Dave's videos. You can read everything there is out there to read, and you will never learn all the lessons you need to learn to be a successful business owner until you own a business and start learning lessons and start making mistakes and learning from those mistakes, until you start failing and learning from those failures. That's just the way that we're wired. That's the way that we operate. So I just want to encourage anyone out there who's experiencing failure or just feeling down. For me, it goes in waves all the time. It can be within a day, I can feel top of the world and bottom of the world. But also just over longer periods of time. But I just want to encourage you, man, if you're in one of those valleys, if you're in one of those troughs, don't quit. Don't quit. And by that, I don't necessarily mean keep pushing along in this business. Maybe you need a change in something, but don't quit trying to be better today than you were yesterday. And don't quit trying to achieve your goals and your dreams. Because I think that's probably about the worst thing that you can do is to quit on yourself. Right. So don't quit on yourself. Even if you quit on the business, don't quit on yourself. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And the last thing I'll say about this topic is at the end of the day, failure is only permanent if you allow it to be permanent.
Yeah.
See, when I talk about being better tomorrow than I was today, if I failed yesterday, a lot of people would see that as permanent. I would see that as just getting back up. And you know what? By default, I'm better today than I was yesterday because I promise you I will learn things from that failure. Mm-hmm. But this all goes back to what I said at the beginning of this little diatribe of mine is it's all mentality. It really is. It's what do you mentally decide you're going to do and you're going to believe? What's your reality? Because I can experience failure, you can experience failure, and 6 other people can experience failure. And it all impacts us in different ways. What I've learned, and I didn't always do this, so let me be clear. What I've learned is every time I fail, every time I experience perseverance on a big level or a big level or a smaller level, is that I'm stronger when I come out of it. And if I'm stronger when I come out of it, then that means God's preparing me for something that I'm going to get ready for because I don't want to miss that. I don't want to miss those opportunities that are in my path. So that's just how I look at things, but hopefully this helps a few people.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate everything that you had just said because I know that it will. It's helped me. It's inspired me. So if nobody else, it's helped me. And I appreciate you just sharing that stuff. And I think that mentality, that mindset is critical. And I also think that you have to be intentional about continuing to infuse your mind with that mindset, because I think left to its natural resources, you're going to start drifting away from that mindset naturally. Right. And I tell my wife this all the time. She's like, why do you keep reading all these books and listening to all these podcasts and all this stuff? And I said, honestly, it's because I have to brainwash myself. I literally brainwash myself because if I don't, I know where my mind's going to drift back to, and it's not going to be something that's going to make me better tomorrow than I am today. Right. If I'm not listening to people who are more successful than me, if I'm not building relationships with people like you who are doing big things and wanting to do bigger things, in life, if I'm not reading books, trying to learn more about, business or being a dad or a husband or whatever, like I know that my mind is going to drift back. And so I know that my mind is susceptible to what goes into it. Right. So I want to choose the things that are going to help me grow and help me be better. So I literally brainwash myself and I make the conscious decision. How do I want to think? And I'm going to fill my mind with that. And I'm going to do it all the time, because if I don't, then I'm naturally going to drift back to a mindset that's not conducive to my growth. Honestly.
Well, you mentioned podcasts and books and all those things are absolutely true. And I do them too, but let's not forget too, it's the 5 people you surround yourself with.
That's it.
The 5 people you spend the most time with. Yeah. And that's a conscious decision. Yeah. It doesn't mean you have to, if you have negative people in your life and you're having a difficult time, depression, emotionally, whatever, doesn't mean you got to kick them out of your life. Just spend less time with them. Mm-hmm. If you have people in your life that are very positive people naturally, and they see things through a different lens, spend more time with them. That's also a part of brainwashing yourself, so to speak, is your mind will gravitate towards those that you associate with and you spend the most time with. And hopefully your immediate family, which you don't really have a choice but to spend time with, hopefully they're a positive influence on you. But hopefully your close friends and family are positive influences as well. But at the end of the day, family, friends, next door neighbors, or live 6,000 miles apart, you still make a conscious decision to associate yourself with them. And it does impact you. And I can say that because I've done it on both sides. I've spent time with negative people and found myself being very negative, and I've spent my positive time with positive people and found them impacting me in a positive way. And then I found myself, because of their impact on me, I found myself positively impacting other people. Mm-hmm. So huge. Take it a step further.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think I know for me, it is a big motivation. I think for you too, on a lot of what we're doing, just creating content. Yes, but even bigger than that. And, I wanted to kind of mention that Dave and I do live Q&As on YouTube, his channel and my channel every month. So make sure you're looking out for those. But like, even with those, like a big part of what I'm trying to do, and I think what you're trying to do too, is create community. And the reason is not just to make a community. It's because we need to surround ourselves with people who are going the same direction as we're going, who can understand the struggles that we're going through. I love it on the one hand when somebody posts like, I was just telling you, right? This morning I had to go out to my laundromat and I had an incident out there and there were 4 cop cars and, but there's stuff gets posted like on the forums or Facebook group or something like that, and I just identify with it and nobody really gets that, but other laundromat owners, they get it, right? Like they understand those struggles. So, but surrounding yourself with people, just like you're saying, who not only have the same mindset, but even those who are beyond where you are and where you want to go. It's so important. And it's why like on these live Q&As that we do, we're always telling people like, hey, yes, us, Dave Mins, Jordan Berry, if we have a guest on with us, we're going to be answering questions, but the real magic is happening in the chats in those, where other people in this industry are in there giving their input and connecting with each other and answering questions from their perspective. And, that network that you build is so important. It's why like on the podcast, I'm always saying, hey, get on the forums every week. It's why I'm saying, get in the Facebook groups, those kinds of things, because you do need to surround yourself with the people that are going to help you elevate yourself to the next level. It's critical.
Yeah. And if I could just take this opportunity, I've never done this publicly. I created a Facebook group called Laundromat Millionaire, and it's a private group. And I would love for you guys to join. And this isn't an either or proposition. Jordan has a forum. You should be in that. You should be actively participating on that on Laundromat Resource. There are other fantastic forums. The CLA has a forum. There are other Facebook groups and stuff. This isn't an either or proposition. Find ones that work for you, positive, negative, whatever. I know we can't all be in 19 of them, but I would encourage you to join them all, participate in them all, and then find 2 or 3, which is what I've done, that work for you. So anyone watching this, whether you're a laundromat owner or not, I would love to have you go to Facebook, type in Laundromat Millionaire. I have a page, which is public, and then I have a private group, which is private. You have to request to join. But as long as you're what I call an abundance mindset person, you're a positive person who wants to be a giver and not a taker, then we want you to be in that group. So I would love for you guys to join. But Jordan's forum on Laundromat Resource is just exploding and taking off with that community value and feel. And I try to get in there as much as I can. And I know a lot of people watching this probably do, but make sure you're participating in that. They're both free. Like they don't cost anything. They're, the only thing that really both, Jordan says all the time on his podcast, ask a question, answer a question. Nobody wants to be takers. There's nothing wrong with learning from each other. Just be sure that you're giving and taking. And that's really the community that I'm trying to build with my Laundromat Millionaire private group, is just a group of people that are there to serve each other. And yes, I want to take something. I want to get something out of this too, but I want to give something. So those, I know you and I are synced up in that, and that we're trying to create those same kind of environments with our own brands and with the things that we're doing with your podcast and all these things. And those are what Jordan and I are. It's why we keep seeing us together on things. It's not because I'm paying him or he's paying me. It's because we're just synced up. Like we just believe a lot of the same things. And we believe, Jordan has greatly impacted my life. I'm grateful for what I consider to be a friendship at this point. And I hope that he feels the same way about me. And it's why we keep doing these things together. And then the last thing I'll say is, holy cow, am I tired of Zoom? Like, I want to do the clean show. I want to do excellence in laundry. I want to be with people. Like, I'm a handshaker. I'm a hugger. I'm a talking person. And this is great. This is fun and awesome. But holy cow, am I ready for some of that in-person stuff too?
Yeah. Well,
anyway,
feeling is mutual. And also, I'm going to link to your Laundromat Millionaire Facebook page there. So if, you can search it on Facebook, or if you just want to click the link, if you're on YouTube, it's down below, or the show notes, laundromatresource.com/show45. If you're interested in that, you should be. And I'm listening to all of this here. Oh, also, I real quick, I just want to say, if you haven't yet, I'm linking it here too, but go subscribe to his YouTube channel. He's given a ton of great information. Make sure to subscribe to both of ours actually, and come join us at our next live Q&A. If you're listening to this pretty soon, our next one is coming up on the 10th, right? March 10th.
I don't have it in front of me. You're putting me on the spot.
I'm pretty sure it's March 10th, but if that's a Saturday, no, actually, I can't remember what day now. But anyways, go check it out. Go subscribe to our channels. You'll get a notification about about those live Q&As. There's more coming if you're listening to this later.
Live Q&A, 7 p.m. East Coast time. And this is on March 10th. So you had the date right. So that'd be 4 p.m. West Coast
time. Yeah. So anyways, go check those out. But join
us, guys. It's awesome. It's phenomenal.
It's phenomenal. So cool, man.
Anyway, go ahead.
It's a lot of fun. But here's one of the things that I wanted to say is like, I am just soaking in everything. I always do. Whether it's, us chatting or something you're posting online. I'm always soaking in everything that you're saying and your mindset. Again, that's part of me brainwashing. I love the way that you think and I want to think that way too, right? So I'm like brainwashing myself with Dave Men's words and wisdom, right? I'm bathing in it.
A lot of people that would caution you against that. Okay? A lot of people would caution you.
Yeah, fools. That's what I'd say. Here's something that I wanted to just kind of give you an opportunity. I know that you have a couple things that you're working on right now.
I do.
Where anybody else who's in the same boat as me, who wants to hear a little bit more of your perspective, maybe a little bit more of your story and a little bit more of your wisdom. I know I'm thinking of two things in particular that you got coming up that, I don't know if you're ready to just kind of let us know these couple of things that you're working on. I would love for you to just talk about those for a second.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to do that with your audience. So the first one is, I'm publishing my first book.
Awesome.
And it'll be, it's not out yet. It'll be coming out later this year, in 2021, depending on when you're watching this. So if you're watching this in the future, it should have come out in late 2021. And the book is called Laundromat Millionaire. And I was telling Jordan before we got on here that, I've written this book 4 times. It's the same book, same story, just with a different twist and a different angle, because the reason I'm writing this book isn't to monetize anything or even to build my brand. The reason I'm writing this book is to encourage and inspire people. And the book is about my business and my entrepreneurial journey in the laundromat industry and how I went from, basically having no money to being a millionaire. That's definitely the journey. But if you're not in the laundromat industry and not even interested in the industry, I believe that there's a lot of principles and a lot of hopefully inspiration that you can take away from it that you can apply to other industries. And so that's the reason I'm writing the book, is just to go back to what I said a minute ago, encourage and to inspire the business community, the entrepreneurship community in general. But definitely I'm a laundromat guy and always will be. So yeah, I appreciate him giving me, that opportunity to say that.
Well, I can't wait real quick before you drop the next exciting announcement. I'm excited about this thing coming out. We'll definitely be promoting. We'll probably be the first 3-peat guest on here when that thing comes out. So you can come tell us a little bit more about it and we can show it off a little bit, maybe give one away. I don't know. We might get crazy.
Yeah, I'll be giving lots of them away.
Yeah. So, I'm really excited about that. And, I've been staying on top of you to make sure that you're keeping on track. And, if I gotta do something drastic, make something happen to make sure you're hitting that deadline, I'm just really excited to read it. So can't wait for that. But even at least as exciting, if not more exciting to me personally, is this next thing you've been working on. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, it's with, great anxiety. I'm an honest guy. What can I say? I'm transparent. But also great excitement that I announced that I'm launching my own podcast under the Laundromat Millionaire brand. And so I'm launching the Laundromat Millionaire podcast. And my first show will be coming out in the next week or so. Yes. If you're watching this in the future, this is March 1st. So if you're watching it in April 2021 or after, it's definitely out. And I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to tell people about that, because the point of the podcast is simply to do what I want to do with the book. The same thing. All the things that I spend my energy and time and resources doing from here on out are about inspiring others and helping others and motivating others and teaching others if I can. So, the podcast is going to be similar to, the legend that is Laundromat Resource, in the sense of there will be some absolutely practical, laundromat stories that we will discuss, because that's who I am and that's who I'll always be. Very passionate about this industry. And so that will shine through whether I want it to or not. But at the same time, my goal with the podcast is not to be 100% industry specific, not to be totally niche. And so I want to, I'm hoping that the lessons that we discuss and the things that we discuss and the actionable lessons that come out of different interviews, and some of the podcasts will just be me. I'm really hoping that they just inspire people to be a better version of themselves tomorrow than they were yesterday. And there may be situations, I'm a dad and I'm very passionate about that. There may be situations where we talk about being a dad or a parent or a mom, and what that looks like. I don't know. But I'm the one thing I refuse to do is put any restraints on this. I just want to have the world available to me as far as options. And I don't care about monetizing it. Once again, if it someday makes me money, fantastic. But what I really want to do is focus on helping and serving people, inspiring people, specifically the entrepreneurship community, the business community, because that's really who I am at my core. I'm a husband, I'm a dad, I'm a child of God for sure, but I'm also just a very, very passionate entrepreneur. It's who I am to my core. I believe I was born that way, and I believe that that's how I'm here to make a difference. And so I'm okay if it, doesn't, I don't expect to be the next Joe Rogan. In fact, if I were, I'm not sure I could handle it. But what I really want to do is just help a few people at the end of the day. And so I'm going to be totally copying off of the legend that is Jordan Berry. And I'm going to be watching him for tips and tricks on what to do. And I'm going to be watching him for tips and tricks on what not to do too. So I can tell you I'm going to be very selective in guess number 2, because if I get that wrong, then I know it's fall down. It's make or break.
Make or break.
And so I want to do big things with this, but no, seriously. So anyone watching this, obviously podcasts and things like that are pretty much free to watch and listen to. And I'm really hoping that my podcast will inspire people and will help them be a better version of themselves, because that's why I'm doing it. I know it's going to be a lot of work. I'm prepared for that. But this is a part of where my heart is, just like my book. My heart is with Laundromat Millionaire and inspiring other people to do great things. And, maybe it's a little bit naive, but I'm also hoping that at some point in some time, whether I ever find out about it or not, I'm hoping that maybe I somehow reach a few people that have maybe given up on their dreams. And maybe somehow in some small way that what I do or what I say or what I write in my book somehow maybe encourages them to stop giving up, because giving up is an active thing you're doing, to push pause on the giving up and to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and say, you know what, I'm not gone yet. I got dreams and I want to chase those dreams. So that's really what my inspiration and my motivation behind it is. So I hope that I'm able to accomplish even a microcosm of what I hope to accomplish.
Yeah. Well,
I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to tell people about it.
Yeah. Let me tell you why I'm so excited about it is, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, right? Is, you mentioned the quote, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I talked about how I like to brainwash myself. All this is saying the same thing. And, what it's saying is what comes into your mind is going to very much affect what comes out of your actions and your results that you get from those actions. Right. And, the reason I'm excited about your podcast is because, that gives me and anyone else who wants to listen and who's inspired by you and who wants to see results that you've gotten, that gives us the opportunity to make you one of the 5 people we spend the majority of our time with, whether we know you personally or not, right? Because we can listen to your podcast, hear what the things you have to say, think about how you think about things, implement those things into our own mindsets and into just practice too. Some of the things that you're putting into practice, whether it be laundromat related or not, entrepreneurial or even just family related. The podcast gives us an opportunity to make you one of those 5 people. And so I'm really excited about that. I think that this idea, when you mentioned it to me and you said, "Hey, what do you think about it?" I was on board, 100% right away, because I think that not only, do you have a ton of wisdom to share, and again, like the mindset stuff is top notch and it really will transform a lot of lives. But also just your personality is great for something like this, and it's going to provide a ton of value. So I'm really excited. And as soon as I have the link to your podcast, I'll make sure that it's in the YouTube description, in the show notes, laundromatresource.com/show45. And I'm sure it'll be available wherever podcasts are. So make sure you subscribe to that, download it, listen to it, absorb it, put it into practice. It'll be awesome. Exciting.
Yeah, it'll be available on all the typical, podcast platforms. All my shows will be on my YouTube channel, just like yours are. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so I'll be sharing them there. But yeah, I just want to connect with people. That's all I want to do is just connect people and help people. And make no mistake, I have learned over the years that when I connect with people and I help people, that they in turn help me. Mm-hmm. And so it's a part of how I constantly try to become a better version of myself. But I try to focus on others, and I believe that those things will come back to me. And my life shows me that they have. So I want to continue to.
Awesome. Well, Dave, I'm grateful to you for a lot of things, but particularly right now, I'm thankful that you came back on the show, shared all this wisdom, and it got me inspired. I know it's going to get a lot of other people, just revved up, and I think there'll probably be some people who are listening to this show today and they just needed a little bit of a pick me up, a little bit of a, hey, you can do it, go get it. And I think that, this just listening to you talk is going to give them, it gave it to me. So I know it'll give it to other people, just that little extra oomph to, hey, take it up another level. If you've gotten a little complacent in some areas, time to pick it back up. No big deal. Just, get back to work and do it. So, man, I appreciate you as a person. I appreciate you as a friend, and I appreciate you as the first ever second appearance podcast guest on the Laundromat Resource podcast.
I didn't tell you this, Jordan, but I really did it for 2 reasons. One, I'm hoping for some kind of a medal or badge.
Okay.
For that.
I'll write that down.
The other reason I did it is because you're constantly telling people that I'm the most viewed podcast episode ever. And I figured, well, I got to be self-promoting. So I'm going to lose that title if I don't get back on the show.
That's right.
And, hey, go check me out in the show notes. Go watch number 2.
Yeah.
And I'm going to start to taper off as you get some true legends on the show.
That's a good point.
And I'm going to lose that status. So it's all self-promoting.
That's right. Well, and the more spaces you take up, the less spaces there are for other people who might take your spot. So, right? It's smart.
Yeah, if I can be on one over every 3, it's a numbers game. I've always said I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I will outwork you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I might have to start charging you a lot more to come on at that point.
Right.
So,
no kidding. If all of a sudden you see Laundromat Resource sponsored by Laundry Edition.
Yeah.
Laundromat Millionaire. That's a different business. Laundromat Millionaire, then you know that Jordan's gotten in my pocketbook.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. All right, man. Well, I appreciate it as always, and looking forward to the next Q&A, which is in a few days, a week and a half or so.
I'm glad you brought that up, man. March 10th, guys. I look forward to those every month. I know Jordan does. And they bring so much value. I mean, you easily walk away with the price of admission in value. Easy.
Yeah.
Because they're free, guys.
They're free.
So,
and we really should start charging for some of this stuff. Gosh.
Yeah. Man. I mean, holy cow. I don't know if anybody would actually pay, but I know the value. I know the value proposition at the price tag it is right now is through the roof.
It's infinite, really.
It's an infinite return, as Robert Kiyosaki says.
That's right. All right, man. Well, I appreciate it. We'll see you in about a week and a half on the live Q&A. And thanks again for coming on.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
All right, man. I could talk with Dave Menz about business and mindset and laundromats all day long, every day. And man, I really just could have kept that thing going because I love talking to him. He just has such a great perspective on things, and he has such a great mindset surrounding success. And I loved the one thing that I really took away from him is that he made it pretty clear he had to develop that mindset, which is encouraging, because that means that you and me and we can develop a mindset that will lead us to success. So let's keep working on it. Every week, I encourage you, pick one thing from the episode, one thing that you can put into practice. Let's stack these every week on top of each other and see where that takes us, because I think it'll take us to great places. For me personally, I mean, it's really hard to narrow it down to one thing. But if I had to narrow it down to one thing that I'm going to try to take away from this conversation with Dave Menz, it's to get around more successful people. People doing things that I want to be doing, people doing things even bigger than what I want to be doing. I really love it. It's nothing I hadn't heard before, but I love the great reminder that, we're the average of the 5 people we spend our time with. So let's spend our time with people who are where we want to be. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look to be hanging out maybe with some more of you guys and, just some other people that are doing really cool stuff. So let's do it. Make sure you pick something. I'd love to hear what you pick. So if you're on YouTube, maybe drop a comment. If you're listening to the podcast, shoot me an email or go to the show notes page, laundromatresource.com/show45. Maybe leave a comment there. Tell me the one thing that you're putting into action, because I think when we put it out there, it gives us a little bit of accountability to really follow up on it. So just an idea, just a thought. Plus, I would love to hear what you're doing, because I'm always trying to learn from everyone, from you guys, from our guests, from everyone, from my customers even. So anyways, thank you for checking us out today. This is laundromatresource.com and Laundromat Resource Podcast, and I'm Jordan, and I'll see you next week.